So in Jubilees, you have the word of the Lord, specifically the angel of the Lord, instructing and actually helping Moses write the creation story. Just one illustration. So this idea, again, is very old. It's as old as the Hebrew Bible. It's as old as Second Temple period literature, and it gets picked up in the Targums. Now, the Targums, as far as their dating, the date of the Targums relates to their manuscripts, but not their content. Their content is very ancient. Again, it goes back to the Hebrew Bible, this word of the Lord idea, Second Temple material like in Jubilees. The Targums, they actually get codified and preserved, the ones we know about anyway, the ones we've recovered, scholars have recovered. They're usually 3rd or 4th century, something like that in the Christian era. So they're later than the New Testament, but their content aligns with BC era sources, like, again, the pseudepigrapha, some material in the Mishnah. Again, it's just that the Targums later get codified, but this was the practice in the early synagogues in Jesus' day and before. Again, after the exile, you would have the Torah read in the synagogue, and you would have in Aramaic a rendering of that material. And that rendering would often include commentary. And that commentary would often include this figure, the Memra of the Lord. So now we take all this and we go back to Jude, this idea of Jesus saving him from the Egyptians. Say, well, get that. Well, if you look at Exodus 3 in the Hebrew Bible, the burning bush incident, Exodus 3:4, for example, when the Lord saw that Moses, he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses, he said, here am I. Now we know from Exodus 3 that there's an angel in the bush. We went back and we read specifically the context. Let's just go here. So verse 4, God calls to him out of the bush. He says, here am I, do not come near. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. All of that we're familiar with is preceded by verse 2, which says, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. The angel is in the bush. Well, guess who's in the bush in the Targums? I'll read it to you. This is from one of the Targums. I think it's Neophiti. He says, this is God speaking. I have been revealed in my Memra to deliver them, the Israelites, from the hands of the Egyptians, to bring them up from this land, to a land good and broad, a land producing good fruits, pure as milk and sweet as honey, to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the whole list there. The Targums actually have the word of the Lord delivering Israel from Egypt. And the word of the Lord, if we went back in Exodus 3:4 in the Targums, it's the Memra, the word of the Lord in the bush. Now that sort of Jewish context ought to be a factor in how we interpret and judge Jude verse 5. The Jesus reading has solid manuscript support. It has won the day with important text critical authorities, and it is entirely consistent with the two powers, the two Yahwehs idea, that sort of thinking in Judaism. I mean, right there it is explicitly in the Targums. You have the word of the Lord. And John calls Jesus the word of the Lord. John chapter 1. You have the word of the Lord delivering the Israelites out of Egypt. And Jude says, yeah, Jesus did that. Jesus did that. And that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode in relation to Jude 4 and 5. But again, I'm hoping you see the impact of this. It's very Jewish in context to read something as really shocking in the New Testament as Jesus being put right back in the Old Testament by Jude 5. But it's got the manuscript support, it's got the contextual support, it's consistent with word of the Lord stuff, second power, second Yahweh stuff back in the Old Testament. And there you go. There it is in the New Testament. So again, for those of you who have read Unseen Realm and been exposed to this before, again, and I know when you talk with your friends about this, people look at you like you have two heads. Again, we're all used to that here. But right here it is in Jude 5. And if you want to explore the Jewish context of Jude 5 and of course John chapter 1, you get the Memra, the word of the Lord, this anthropomorphic God as man figure, substituted for Yahweh or inserted alongside Yahweh in the Jewish Targums that everybody in Jesus' day grew up hearing who went to synagogue. I mean, it's a transparent context for the kind of things that I wrote about and I'm arguing for in Unseen Realms. So hopefully you found this interesting. Again, I think it's very useful and for apologetics. And again, just generally seeing the continuity across the Testaments. So next week, we'll move on from Jude chapter 5. I don't know how far we'll get because there's a lot in here. Jude 6, we'll probably spend the whole time on Jude 6 because it's the angels that sinned. I don't know. Spent a lot of time on that in Unseen Realms, so we may go beyond it. But again, it's just another example in this little letter of the really theologically significant stuff that's actually in it.
All right, Mike, this is becoming one of my favorite book studies so far. So we also
go ahead. Good stuff.
Yeah, it is good stuff.
I was going to say it's good stuff.
Good stuff times 1,000. All right. Well, we want to remind everybody, hey, go support our sponsor, logos.com/nakedbible. Now's the time to get on Logos and support us, the show, and Logos, of course. It's the best Bible software tool out there. I think Mike would agree with that. True or false?
Yeah, true. And you know what? I'm reading from the Targums here. Guess what? I'm reading them in Logos. The Targums in English translation are one of the book sets you can buy in Logos Bible software and find the material right there.
There you go. Go support our sponsor. We appreciate Logos for sponsoring us. And all right, Mike, looking forward to part 3 next week. And with that, I want to thank everybody for listening to the Naked Bible Podcast. God bless.
Thanks for listening to the Naked Bible Podcast. To support this podcast, visit www.nakedbibleblog.com. To learn more about Dr. Heiser's other websites and blogs, go to www.drmsh.com.